Welcome to Love and Trauma, the real deal. I'm Danielle Sebastian, best-selling author, coach, and yes, I've been through the marriage trenches myself. This show is all about how to actually deal with trauma in relationships and make it work without losing your mind. If you're ready for honest talk, no fluff, and tools that cut through the noise, tune in, because let's face it, love can be a bit of a mess, but it's a mess worth figuring out. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal.
What if the behaviors you get so frustrated with at home, at school, at work aren't what they seem at all? What if they're actually just survival responses from someone who's hurting and doesn't know how to say it? In today's episode, I'm sitting down with someone I could talk to for hours, Madeline Wright. And I talk to her as if she's Maddie, because that's how I know her. And she's a trauma educator and founder of Connecting Stories. She helps people truly see what's going on underneath the behaviors, especially with kids from hard places. But she doesn't stop there. Maddie trains caregivers, teachers, and organizations to respond in ways that actually bring safety, connection, and healing. And you absolutely have to hear how she got into this work. She grew up in a home that fostered infants directly from the NICU. She saw up close how trauma responses start even in the womb. And those early experiences lit a fire in her to change the way that we care for kids and how we understand adults who carry those same survival patterns into their relationships. Now, a little bit more about Maddie. She holds an undergrad in special education and a master's in behavioral sciences focused on trauma and resilience. She's a trust-based relational intervention practitioner, TBRI, and a Halo Making Sense of Your Worth facilitator, the only one in Delaware. And Maddie offers specialized training to support organizations serving vulnerable populations. But beyond her credentials, what stands out is her heart, her clarity, and her commitment to helping us finally understand what's behind those behaviors. And here's the thing, this conversation isn't just for parents or teachers. If you've ever had a hard time dealing with someone at work, in your relationship, in the classroom, anywhere, you need to hear this because there might be something deeper going on. And when we respond with curiosity instead of control, that's where everything can shift. And you guys, I know this because I've lived it. Being married to a childhood trauma survivor changed the way I see behavior and connection. And it's why I started this show. We absolutely need to talk more about trauma and the ripple effect it has and what's actually possible when we meet it with understanding. So whether you're raising a child, loving a partner, or just trying to make sense of the people in your world, this episode is going to stay with you. So let's get into it. For being here today. I am so excited for our conversation.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you bringing me on.
Yay. Okay. So why don't you, I'm just going to start out broad, but tell us just a little bit about yourself and then what led you to be doing what you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to give a lot of credit to my amazing mother, Bobby. And Bobby started fostering when I was in middle school, and we had 11 newborn babies from the NICU, one right after the other. So there was very little sleep for about 5 years. And what people don't really talk to you about are the behaviors that come even with infants. So a lot of people's assumptions are if I foster an infant or I adopt an infant, I'm getting them early enough that they're not going to have all of the behaviors and the big trauma, right? When you think of like big T trauma, they're not going to have all that. But that was just not right, and nobody was really talking about it with us. So our kids had problems like you put them in the car seat and you drive them to the babysitter and they'd scream for hours after that, or you'd give them a bath and it would be like you were boiling them alive. They just didn't soothe quite like other infants did. And so that led me to my special education degree, because I said, if they're this hard when they're little, what is going to happen when they're 12 16, 18, 30, what happens to these kids? And so I wanted to see what that next step was. And to me, it was a special education program that maybe had more tools to handle big behaviors. So I got into my degree, and my professors were amazing. I mean, they really leaned in and supported me and said, we hear what you're saying. We identify that there are kids like that in our classrooms, but we kind of want to push you a little bit and go, is this the right place for these kids? Or are we kind of just the most equipped to handle behaviors? That led me to a big journey of, so what is this subgroup of kids? What's the common theme here? And the answer came to me actually in the form of a weekend seminar. I'll be honest, they had free Chick-fil-A, and as a college student who can ignore free Chick-fil-A, and my professor said he'd give me extra credit if I went, and I came back and presented to the class. I was like, I mean, why
No
not, right?
brainer. Right.
No, no brainer. They're going to feed me breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm down. So I got there, and they started talking about something called complex trauma, which we'll dive into a little bit more here in a minute. But it was talking about how trauma impacts the brain and the body, and what do we do about these behaviors. And it was like a light bulb, the rainbow, I don't know what you want to call it, but it was a big moment for me. And I was like, this is what the missing link is. This is what nobody's talking about with my foster siblings. And it's not translating into, for example, our school systems. And so that was called trust-based relational intervention, which I am now certified to teach here in Delaware. And TBRI is the flag that I stake in the ground, and that's the hill I'm willing to die on. It is attachment based, and it looks at neuroscience, and it goes, how can we address these behaviors in a way that connects with this child and lets them know that they are precious and loved. And that was so important to me, especially with my foster siblings. So came back to Delaware after my bachelor's degree with this new certification, right? Like my little white flag. And I dove into what I now call Connecting Stories LLC, where I offer TBRI trainings to our Delaware communities. So nonprofits, schools, and I try and have a couple of open to the public trainings where people can, come in that I might not think of. So that has been the last 3 years, I believe, roughly 3 years.
Oh my goodness, Maddie, there's so much to unpack in that.
Yes,
Oh, I
it's
am
like
so
quickly.
glad. Oh, I'm so glad yeah, I did. Sorry. I'm so glad you're doing this work. Oh, can you tell me more about the infants? And how complex, PTSD develops, and then I'll ask my second question.
Sure,
Let's
sure, sure,
start
sure.
there.
Sure, sure. So complex trauma is different than PTSD, and that is the first thing I had to learn was a lot of times we are misdiagnosing with PTSD first. Um, PTSD was originally developed for soldiers who returned from war, and so that's a very different set of symptoms. Complex trauma, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk defines it as a break in the human lifeline, and so it is repetitive, consistent trauma in early childhood. And that has very different symptoms and very different problems later on than PTSD. Now, I will tell you, you can have complex trauma, right? Like you can be in early adversity in your home and then go fight in a war, right? And come back, and now you have both, and you have double the symptoms. So that there is a fine line there where I do think some people can have both. But a lot of times we
Oh,
don't look
Maddie,
at
I
that
agree
complex
with
trauma.
you.
Yeah,
I agree
yes.
with you. Yes. So I see that in partners like I work with partners where their husband had childhood trauma, and then a lot of them, I think that they might be attracted even to first responder military jobs. And then it's complex with the PTSD on top of it. So,
Mhm.
and the infants, it's interesting because, they were in a good home, but that initial trauma of not being loved and cared for by their mom, is that really what happens there?
Yes, and we now know that complex trauma can start within the womb. So if the mom is
Yeah.
experiencing a form of toxic stress, or she's being abused, or maybe she just doesn't have her basic needs being met, um, any of those things can genetically impact an infant. And basically, it's kind of like evolution of sorts, where you're becoming able to survive whatever you're coming into. Your body is adapting in the womb to be able to survive the environment that you'll be born in, right? That makes sense. So you can look into a lot of epigenetics and how that impacts our brain and our body as well.
Oh, wow. So how does this play out? Like, does it come out like when they go to school and those type of things? So if they have complex, PTSD, then what are some of those behaviors that you were talking about, that start to come to play?
Sure. So it's important to note that as far as the brain development goes and how behaviors develop, starting school at 4 or 5 isn't necessarily like a big moment in brain development. It's just when we have more eyes on that child, right? That might be the first time that 10 more people are in the vicinity of this child. So we see behaviors because all of a sudden there's like a light being shown on the behaviors. But it starts as early as the first year of life. Our first year of life, we're developing, I have a voice and I matter. We can talk about the attachment cycle where, if the baby cries and the caregiver comes, that baby learns that they're important and they matter. And later, that base of safety helps them go on and explore their environment and to be able to become, whatever beautiful thing that they'll become in their life. But if that's missing, then that's when we start to see problems.
Okay. Okay. And then what are some of those problems?
Yeah. Well, again, in the case of like our foster kids, and I'm not gonna, put it in a bottle, so I'll just give my experience. A
Yeah.
lot of sensory problems in the beginning.
Mm.
Um, we had one infant who would lay in the crib and he would just scratch and scratch and scratch the sheets because they were just too scratchy for him. We ended up having to get like a really uber duper soft set of sheets so that he could actually fall asleep. It was really bothering his skin. I mentioned earlier infants that we would put into a bath, a lukewarm bath. It was like you were boiling them alive. I mean, they were just
Oh my
terrorized. Even when you
goodness.
turned the water on, they were filled with terror. And again, these were babies that we were getting from the hospital, not
Right.
necessarily with any
Not like a month in or anything. It's like, oh my
correct.
goodness.
Correct.
Oh,
Or the act of riding backwards in the car was very destabilizing for those infants. They weren't able to regulate. So there was a lot of just bizarre. And nobody was,
yeah.
saying, "Oh, the sheets are too scratchy. Just get new sheets." We had to work with this for
Figure it
weeks and
out.
weeks. Yes. Again, my mom was a saint. I don't know how she did it.
Oh, 11, and she did
Mhm.
11. Wow.
Yes.
That is dedication. But how long would you have them? I'm just curious. That like if you
Typically about a year. I believe our
Okay.
longest was a year and a couple months.
Okay. And then did you see improvement in that year with all
Yeah, there
the
there would
love?
there would come to some stability and whatnot, but even with that, we still have, contact with the oldest too. And I do believe there will continue to be some form of behavior and some form of, of mark from that beginning, that type of beginning to life. And I think as long as they continue to get intervention, and something I'll repeat probably 100 times in this, is that there is hope and healing for every child
Every
with
child.
good intervention. There is hope and healing for every child that we see.
Okay, so let's start getting into that what we see and in school,
Mhm.
and then we can talk about why what our current what typical interventions don't work.
Mhm. Mhm.
Let's talk about
So,
that.
you know, early adversity affects a lot of different things, the brain, the body, behaviors, belief systems, biology of a child. And we've already talked about what complex trauma is. Again, remember, it's that like break in the human lifeline, um, that attachment to their primary caregiver is broken. And so when we look at, the brain scan even of a child who has experienced early adversity, there are parts of the brain that aren't actually online as much as they should be, or they're working overtime. So I'm going to do this in a super simple way. So if you put
Mm,
your hand up with me, we're going to do a
sure.
hand
Here
model.
we go.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
And you put your thumb in your palm,
Yeah.
and you're going to drop your four fingers over your thumb.
Yeah.
Okay, this is now a model of your brain, right? So you can tell
Yep.
yourself
Got
hi
it.
brain. Okay, so your four fingers here over your thumb, these are the prefrontal cortex. This is your upstairs happy learning brain. Me and you can focus here. We're probably in upstairs brain because we're able to sit still. We're engaging in good conversation, making eye contact, right? All that thing.
Yeah.
Now a bear runs in. All right, bear is in your house. Oh my goodness, your lid's gonna flip. All right, you are now
Yeah.
in a fight, flight, freeze mode, and this is your downstairs brain down here, and this is
Mm,
your right fight, flight, freeze brain.
yeah.
Not as able to concentrate, pay attention, right? Do all these different things. Your body is just trying to respond to keep you alive. And the thumb here is actually the watchtower of the brain, and that lets you know you're going to be in danger. So, in our model, a bear has now run into the room, right? Well, what happens when the bear lives with you, right? And it's constantly activating your brain up and down, up and down. You're constantly worried about something. You're constantly in fight, flight, freeze mode. Well, this little muscle right here becomes incredibly active to the point where it stays on most of the time. So we can actually see that on brain scans in children that have experienced early adversity. We can see that this is
Is
very
on.
active. And this down here, fight, flight, freeze, very active. Whereas
On.
the upstairs brain up here may not be as active. And that's Dr. Dan Siegel's hand model. You guys can all pull that
Oh,
back up on YouTube, but you can put your hand down now.
love it.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
these
And it's
poor
great to teach
kiddos.
people. Yeah, it's great to
Yeah.
teach people that like this is what's happening. Kids, the
Yeah.
next thing is the belief system. These kids feel really bad about themselves. They feel confused. They may say, I feel yucky or I don't like myself. And it's because they know something is wrong a lot of times. And remember, this is a much more active part of the brain than most people. And so they have this feeling, this sense that something's not quite right. And teaching them something like this lets them know this is your brain trying to keep you alive, right?
Yes.
So we can
Yes.
rewire the brain purposefully. We
Yes.
can help teach you how to get out of that state, but it helps to know what the problem is. So fixing that belief system is super important. We've already talked a little bit about the body and how sensory issues can kind of like permeate what's happening with this child. So the
Yeah.
thing with trauma is it intrudes on your everyday life, right? It comes
Yeah.
in and it intrudes on very simple activities. You could be cooking or enjoying a time with your kids, and all of a sudden, boom, flashback, right?
Yeah.
So those sensory issues can be tied into some of those intrusions. And then as far as biology goes, the person that I absolutely love studying is Dr. Burke Harris. And Dr. Burke
Mm.
Harris wrote The Deepest Well, and she's done a lot of great work out in California as far as ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. And
Mhm.
she talks a lot about how early adversity and high levels of early adversity lead to some of the number one killers in the United States. I think she says it's like 7 of 10 of some of the biggest killers in the United States can be led back to early childhood adversity. So early trauma impacts your biology quite a bit.
And the early killers would be
That could
cardiac,
be, yeah, it could be heart
cardiac,
problems. It
or
could be lung
yeah,
problems. I mean, we can go into all sorts of things. Yes.
yeah. I mean, I can just, and I see it, in my partner and the other women that I talk to. It's just like that constant stress
Mm-hmm.
really takes a toll.
Mm-hmm.
It really
It
takes a
does.
toll.
It
Yeah.
does. It does. And that's something that we don't discuss a lot. Like I
No.
said, people will quickly jump into the PTSD camp, or you'll see a lot of medication of symptoms like ADHD or OCD or the disruptive behavior disorders, right? We could get into all sorts of fun labels, and we typically choose to medicate the symptoms instead of going, okay, here's this list of symptoms, and if we tested for early adversity, we can put the two together and have a more comprehensive and holistic approach.
Yeah, and I've interviewed quite a few survivors now, and the autoimmune, chronic diseases, GI issues, gynecological issues. I mean, it's just this pent up, these pent up holding thing down feelings just wreck the body.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So tell me why when the normal interventions or typical interventions may not be the best.
Banging your head against the wall, trying to navigate the complexities of a relationship impacted by childhood trauma, it doesn't have to be this daunting. When you're married to a partner with unresolved childhood trauma, it can feel like you're walking on eggshells, never quite knowing what will set them off. No matter what you try, it feels like there's always something triggering another emotional response that seems completely out of context. And the harder you try to fix it, the more discouraged you feel. So what's the issue here? Navigating marriage with a trauma survivor is different. The love languages don't work. Date nights don't work. Self-help books don't help. But here's the good news. I've created something that does work. Something built from years of hard-earned lessons and real-life experience. Ready to take the first step toward real change? Let's talk. I'm offering a free one-on-one call where we'll dive into what's going on in your relationship and figure out a way forward together. This isn't just another quick chat. It's a chance to finally be heard, to share what you're going through with someone who truly gets it. No judgment, just real support. So if you're ready to start making sense of it all and find a little more peace in your marriage, book your free call now. Your happiness, your peace, and your relationship are worth it. Let's do it together.
So children from hard places, when they're dysregulated, you can cut their biological age in half. I'm going to say it again. When they're dysregulated, you can cut their biological age in half. So imagine a 16-year-old young man standing in front of you. He gets dysregulated. Remember, his lid flips. The bear has come into the room for him. When that happens, he's now 8. So you have a 16-year-old body, which can be scary, right? A 16-year-old young man could hurt you. And the mindset and the emotional development of an 8-year-old. Yeah. But it doesn't end there, because they also have the street smarts, manipulation skills, and savvy of about a 30-year-old who's in jail. Yes. Yes. Who has a ton of just street smarts and savvy, right? They know how to get their needs met, maybe not appropriately, but they can get their needs met. Yeah. Yes. So a lot of typical interventions, and back to your question, are based on age-appropriate verbal and reasoning skills, which I just told you, when they're dysregulated, they don't have.
It's it's off the table.
Yes.
Okay. So what do you do? How do you do it? Intervene in a way that works.
So TBRI, the model that I teach, again, it's that trust-based relational intervention. We focus on, there's 3 principles within TBRI. It's the connecting, empowering, and correcting. And so connecting first is, how can I create relationship and let that child's body even know that I'm in relationship and attunement with them, even though they've experienced hard things. And that might be, very, very simple acts like encouraging healthy and soft eyes with a child, appropriate touch when that's available, playing games and being able to kind of step back. But how do I connect with that child? And that's super important to being able to move forward. And I will say the heartbeat of TBRI is connection. So if you can connect, you're very, very far along in this game. The next part of that is the empowering principles. And the empowering principles looks at what's going on outside of the child's body and inside the child's body. And how can we develop something called felt safety? So I can tell you right now, Miss Danielle, that you are safe. Wherever you're sitting, you're safe. But unless you feel safe, it doesn't matter what I say.
No, it doesn't matter what you say. No.
Doesn't matter, right? And again, if your lip
Yeah.
was flipped, for example, I could tell you you're safe all day long. It doesn't matter because you're in fight, flight, freeze mode.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to help that child's body in as many different ways as possible to feel safe. And that could be like starting with good hydration, good nutrition, good sleep schedule. Make sure they're getting enough
Ah,
activity, good sensory activity.
that's
Um,
why the basics are so
yes,
important
very, very
for
important.
safety. For
Yeah,
safety.
yeah.
Oh,
And you
okay.
look at, even Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Well, you can't do anything if
Yeah.
you don't get past tier
No.
one.
Nope.
That's exactly.
Mm-mm.
That's
Okay.
exactly. And we're respectful of sensory disorders and anything that can come out of that. So,
Mhm.
even making sure they have opportunities to try activities that make them uncomfortable, but be able to step back in a very soothing environment, teach regulation strategies very purposefully.
Really? Okay.
Yes. So that's the
I want to
empowering.
get to that again more,
Yeah.
that regulation piece, but and then what's
Yeah.
the third one was what?
Correct. And so
Correct.
we want
Okay.
to be proactive in handling behaviors. So, how can we practice together how we're going to handle behaviors before it even happens?
Okay.
Right? Again, we might go into more regulation strategies. We might practice redos. We might have some life scripts that we can use with each other. And then, of course, there will always be a time when behaviors just come out and we have to deal with them at that point. So, how do we
Yeah.
deal with them once things have happened? And TBRI has very clear step by step instructions, which I appreciate because I'm a step by step kind of gal.
Me too. Me
Yes,
too.
yes.
Very much. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of those things because this regulation for these poor kid, the kids that have CPSD,
Mhm.
it plays out in relationships. And the partner is going, whoa, I don't
Mhm.
know how to fix it in the moment, and I don't
Mhm.
know how to make it any better.
Mhm.
And so anything that I can learn about how you know, intervene on dysregulation and make it better, I'm all for. So tell me
Mhm.
just a little bit about that.
Mhm. As far as dysregulation goes, again, hitting some of those basic needs first.
Yeah.
By the time that you're thirsty, by the time you feel thirst, you've had a 10% decline in cognitive function.
Mhm.
So that leads to meltdowns, whether we think about it or not, right? So how can we encourage some of
Yeah.
these super basic things? Even
Okay.
being aware of the power of food. So we really encourage high protein food, but we also know that there's a place for soothing and alerting food. So a soothing food would be something sweet, like watermelon or fruit, right? And an alerting food, so let's say that person comes home from work and they're kind of down in the dumps and tired, might be a pickle, something sour. So we
Mm.
have, we teach these different ways to, not only meet some basic needs, but also utilize their natural effects. Um,
Wow, I love that. I
yeah,
love
yes,
that.
I do too. I
Okay.
do too. We
Yeah.
talk about making a plan for when I get dysregulated. Either I'm feeling too low in my energy levels or I'm too high in my energy levels. What do I
Mhm.
do now?
Okay, so
And
figuring it out
uh
before
yes, yes, yes,
you crack or withdraw or whatever,
yeah,
when the signs that you're gonna, not have as much tolerance, I guess, right? Or
yes, yes.
yeah,
And the reality is that we
yeah,
all have a time where a room is too loud or a tag
yeah,
in our shirt is bothering us, but there are people
yeah.
that have heightened experiences to these types of things, and so how can we identify triggers beforehand, and
Before.
and then it really changes your perspective, right? Because now you're
Yeah.
like, that's an easy fix. we
That's
can
an
just
easy fix. I
we
yes,
can
indeed, right? Just
we can cut
eat,
the tag
drink,
out.
and be merry. Like
It's like, oh, I can cut all the tags out of your shirts if this helps with blow-ups. It's
yes.
fine.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
exercise. That's why they're so important, right? It's like all
Yes.
these things.
Yes. And you asked about about, it's more self-regulation tools. Again, going back to Dr.
Yeah.
Burke Harris, she has a
Yeah.
program called ACEs Aware in California. And there is a packet called the Stress Busters, and it has more information on, how can we combat stress in our daily lives. And it's very, very good information. I'd highly recommend taking a look
Mm.
at that.
Okay. That's great. Okay. And so then when they do, whatever, have this dysregulated moment, how do you help that?
hmm
How do you help that?
Well, you have to keep in mind that this is a 4-day class that I teach, right? So
Yeah,
the
totally.
TBRI
Just to the
yeah,
gist.
it's the
I'm curious.
yes, yes. We have
I know
we
it's not a simple fix. Believe
yes,
me.
right.
Believe
We
me.
have
Yeah.
something called the ideal response
Okay.
and the levels of behavior in TBRI. So we monitor energy level, right?
Okay.
And
Uh-huh.
different, a little, what we like to say is a little transgression just needs a little response. A lot of times, because we're so burnt out with
Mm.
kids like this, or even spouses like this, right, or partners, um they have a little transgression, and because we're burnt out and we're not taking good care of ourselves, we just
Oh,
right, I mean
100%.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
So I think the biggest part, if I could leave you with anything about the correcting, is
Yes.
how can I be mindful of myself when I go to address this? Because if I can
Yeah.
go to myself, hold it, count for a second. Is
Yeah.
this is this feeling I'm having actually based on this little issue, or big issue? I don't know, whatever that is, whatever the behavior is.
Yeah.
Or is it perhaps my history? Maybe I've experienced hard things. Or is it our current history, right? This
Yeah.
build up of things that has now just come out in, the big red rage monster. And if you can do that, and maybe you choose to step away for a minute, maybe you
Yeah.
do have enough regulation to address it, you're more attuned with the person in front of you. We talk about having, those healthy boundaries, right? And giving nurture. So we call it that, it's like a pair of feet, right? It's the nurture footsteps that we go through. And so we want to give a little bit of nurture, but we also want to give a little bit of structure.
Yeah.
And if we give too much of one or the other, it either impedes growth or it impedes trust. So it's this little pattern, but you have to be mindful of what's going on with yourself and attuned with yourself to then handle all of that and to be able to do your little footsteps.
Yeah. Oh, totally agree. Because like with part, I mean, the people I work, we're fighting over a lot of little things.
Yeah.
But it's
Oh,
this
yes.
past, it's resentment, it's
Yes. Yeah.
all those things that end
Mhm.
up just kind of fueling it, and making them bigger. So
Yes. And that's hard. I'm not going
it
to say
is
that that's
hard.
easy.
No, it's not, but
A
yeah.
trauma informed journey is a
Mhm.
lifetime of choices that even myself that teaches this and uses this with my foster kids, and my husband, it doesn't always
No,
come out well.
no,
Sometimes I'm the
nope.
dysregulated one, and then he uses it on me, or oh goodness, even our foster kids use it on me at this point. We have this pattern that we're hopefully, going to pass on generation to generation.
Yeah. Yeah. How many foster? So you foster two now?
So mom again fostered 11, and then we still
Uh-huh.
get the oldest two. They've gone to biological family, but we still get
Oh,
them,
you
weekends and
do?
summers and all that. It's
Oh,
wonderful. Yes.
oh my goodness. Okay, so tell me, do you work with schools? Because I
Mhm.
feel like the
Mhm.
schools this could really use this training. Tell me
Yes.
about that.
I have to always be careful with
Yes,
with
understand.
that topic. So
Yes.
TBRI encourages a very top-down approach. I'm careful to train teachers
Okay.
without administration follow-up. So when I do a
Okay.
big training for school, for example, I did what they're called the Beach Babies Child Care Centers, and they have 5 centers throughout the state. And every single person that worked at Beach Babies was at that training. It was 200 people.
Okay. Oh,
We
wow.
had
Okay.
we
So
had
everybody.
the we had the owner, we had the lunch ladies, we had maintenance, everybody. Anybody who could possibly interact with those children or were going to support the teachers in interacting with those children had
Anybody.
to be in that training.
Mm,
Because you give them these tools and you give them something that works, but without support, it's very hard to continue to use
yeah.
well, right? You know, if you're implementing it, but then none of the other teachers or your administration, when they see the kid implements it, well, that's very frustrating for
Yeah.
somebody to be very successful and then have a lot of failure with a child, per se,
Yeah.
with other people. Um, the Beach Babies were an absolutely fabulous group. We had so much fun. I can't even express how much fun we had.
Oh,
And I would love to see this move into all schools, but as you can imagine, they're big
yeah.
projects, that would be probably an all year project for me to help everybody, from admin down in a school facility.
Yeah.
So yes, I
Yeah.
help schools, but it's a one at a time type of thing for me because I want to make sure they get the support that they need.
Are there other people who do this
Yes.
in schools?
In schools.
Yeah.
Oh yes. Well,
In schools,
I'm the
yeah.
only TBRI practitioner in Delaware, but there
You
are
are.
TBRI.
Okay.
Yes, there are TBRI practitioners all over our nation,
Okay.
and now we've even gone international, which is really cool.
Oh,
And so you can get
yeah.
on the
Okay.
the the Founding Institute's website. It's called the KPICD, and they have a list. And so if somebody is trying to find somebody like myself in their state or in surrounding areas, they would be able to locate a TBRI
Wow.
practitioner close to them.
Okay. Yeah, you sent me some for Montana.
Yes, yes.
Oh, I know. Oh gosh, I love that. Tell me what the Beach Babies people told you, how it helped
Oh,
um
yeah.
them. Tell
How it
me.
helped. I've got so much amazing feedback. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at my Google profile, a lot of reviews came from the Beach Baby staff.
Okay.
Um, some of the biggest things that I always feel like with TBRI. Now, I've sat through a lot of TBRI trainings before I ever even taught it, and it's such a journey for yourself first.
Yes,
Yes, right? The first time you
indeed.
go through it, I mean, yes, you're supposed to be taking it so that you can implement it with the children in your care, but you end up going,
Yeah.
that that was me at some point or another in my life. Maybe that was me as a child, or maybe that was me in a previous relationship. And I've
Yeah.
got some stuff to work on. And so I feel like a lot of feedback comes from that. Like I just didn't realize how much trauma impacts in our biology, right? In our brain, like things that we can actually see a difference in. And that really helps them create empathy to be able to use some of
Yeah.
these tools. Because after a 4 full day training, I don't expect them to remember everything, to know everything, to implement it perfectly. My goal, especially that first time, is big empathy for the children in their care and for themselves as they go into
Yeah.
possibly a healing journey for themselves. And then we can follow up and support them after the training. That's okay. I'm
Yep.
okay with that. So that's normally the
Yes.
biggest feedback I get is what happened there.
Which is so important because I do think that there's a lot of shame and guilt being thrown at people for behaviors that if we just, all just took a deep breath and tried
Yes.
to figure out where these behaviors are coming from
Yes.
and
Yes.
that we didn't try and hide them, right? We didn't try to suppress them, all those type of things. It would be just this healing environment where we can all help each other.
Yes. And that is
Oh,
the biggest thing I tell people. People are like, well, this is for kids. I don't think this is going to work for me and my organization. And I go, do you deal with people at all? Even just your employees?
Yeah.
If so, this training is for you. Now, maybe we do a little
Yeah.
bit of a condensed version where we don't get into as much of the childcare pieces, certainly.
Yeah.
But I think everybody can benefit from understanding how trauma impacts a person and then how can we respond in empathy, which is really important. Not intolerance,
Mhm.
I'm not going to allow poor
No.
behavior. TBRI is a no disrespect zone. We are not gentle parenting these kids. Um,
Mhm.
but empathy, how can I respond in empathy?
Mhm. And connecting, because I think what a lot of things are happening in society, schools, jobs, everything. It's like you throw that in the your last step first,
Oh, sure. Oh, sure.
right?
And that's something you've nailed it. We talk
And
about that in
yeah,
TBRI as most traditional strategies for handling with behavior start with correcting
yeah,
and then they work their way up to empowering and
yeah,
connecting. But that's a very insecure way to handle things. If again, we've talked about Maslow's hierarchy. If they don't have those basic needs met, it
yeah.
doesn't matter what type of correcting you're doing. It
No,
doesn't
no,
sink
it just
in.
doesn't work. And then you're not, I think I would assume it would make it way harder for them to connect and
Yes,
then feel empowered the other
absolutely.
way around. Oh
Absolutely.
gosh, Maddie, this is so, I love this conversation.
Me too.
I have one more question for you
Okay.
before we close out. And I just am wondering, I know that you work with kids, but what is the impact for early intervention for these kiddos
Mhm.
to then create real connection and successful, happy, healthy lives?
Mhm. Mhm. I think it can go into as many things as, well, first of all, we can help them with their attachment style,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
we talk about there's insecure and there's a secure attachment style. We can help move them from that because believe it or not, the first year of life is when you develop your attachment style. And
Sure.
without intervention, that's the one you live with. It doesn't change per se. Without intervention, it won't change.
Mm.
And so we go back and we fix that and we help them come to what we would call an earned secure, where they've done some work. And that is defined by Jude Cassidy as the ability to give and receive care, the ability to negotiate needs, and the ability to be your autonomous self. All right. So that's very hard for some people. Maybe they have aspects of that, but maybe they can't do a piece of it. So we want to help them towards that earn secure. Um,
Mm.
Another thing
Okay.
is helping them understand health, right? You were talking about chronic health issues in adults. High adversity in ACEs can lead to health risk behaviors such as alcohol or drug abuse. Um, even STDs, risky sexual behavior, early pregnancy, right? All of these different things. And so if we can identify that that's what the problem is, treatment changes drastically because we're
Yeah.
not just treating symptoms. So we can help these people with their attachment styles so they can have a meaningful relationship with adults. But then we can also help them as far as taking care of some of these health issues that might pop up kind of randomly, even in their early adulthood.
Oh, yeah, I love that because as I mentioned, I've done, with a lot of survivors where they've had uh, in and out of, you know, hospitals and, seeing people with all these symptoms. And, I hope it's getting better. But at the time, all of them said no one asked them what was
Mm-hmm,
going on in the home
mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
how they grew up.
Very common
Um,
problem.
Very common problem.
Yes.
So putting a plug in
Yes.
for that today, because I think that again, this earlier intervention could have just made such a big difference for many of the survivors that I have interviewed and come across today. So thank you, Maddie, for what you do.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on here. And I think I want to leave people with this. I was not necessarily anything special compared to my peers. We all had a heart to love children and to do really good work. I watched and I have watched many of my peers that went into the teaching field stop teaching very early, 4 years after our degree of, special education, they have stopped teaching because they don't have the tools to deal with behaviors. And so, I've followed this breadcrumb trail and it's kind of became, my life goal. But for people out there, I'm not some crazy, smart, super scientist that, that dove into this and I'm the only one that can get into it. This information is out there and I'm always happy to help people, come to some of their own conclusions when reading these articles and kind of dipping their toes into this work. So don't be afraid to explore it yourself.
Yeah, let's just end on that. So what are some of these resources? So you already mentioned the book that, of course, I'm going to include in the show notes. You talked about the ACEs Aware would be a good place to start. Is there anything else that you would recommend?
Yeah, Dr. Bruce Perry's The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog is a really quite an excellent book to read. I also have, I'm pulling it up. I have a reading list and a website resource. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you the link to that. And it is pretty much the culmination of all of the stuff that I have read and watched in an effort to understand this, as well as obviously my master's degree. So I will send that to you.
Oh, thank you, Maddie.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. I know that the work that you're doing is going to make the biggest impact. And I am so grateful for this conversation and I want to help you get the word out. So thank you for everything you do. And I hope to connect in the future. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Oh, that conversation with Maddie is one that I will never forget. And honestly, I hope it sticks with you like it stuck with me. Because here's the real deal. The three biggest things I want you to take away from this episode and actually start doing today. Number one, behavior is communication. Whether it's a kid acting out or your partner shutting down, there's almost always something underneath. And I had to learn this the hard way. In my own marriage, I used to take things so personally until I finally slowed down and started asking, what's really going on here? What is this behavior trying to say? That one shift changed everything. And it moved me and my husband to being in constant conflict to real connection. Number two, trauma doesn't start in adulthood and healing can't either. And Maddie's story about fostering those babies in the from the NICU really got me. Trauma can start before the child even enters the world, but the beauty is so can healing. And whether you're raising a kid or trying to understand your own story, it's never too late, but also never too early to show up with compassion. And number three, you don't need to fix people. You just need to see them. And this is one I've lived. For years, I tried to manage, fix, solve. But the real breakthrough came when I stopped trying to change my husband and started to really try and understand him. When I saw the pain behind the patterns, that's when everything softened. You don't need perfect strategies. You just need presence, patience, and a willingness to stay curious. So this week, I want to challenge you. Pause before reacting. Get curious before correcting. And remind yourself, this might not be about you at all. Because the moment you stop asking what's wrong with them and start asking what happened to them, you open the door to real connection. This is Love and Trauma, the real deal. And friend, I'm so glad you're here, and I'll see you next week.
All right, that's a wrap for today on Love and Trauma, the real deal. Big thanks to my guests for sharing their insights. Couldn't have done it without you. Now, for those of you looking to take this journey further, I've got something special. Head to my website to grab Real Tactics, Real Healing, a survivor's playbook for navigating a relationship with a trauma survivor. It's packed with everything you need to know, do, and say to navigate the emotional minefield, find your balance, and regain your self-worth and happiness.